Two elephants are standing in the savannah. 100 meters of dry grass and dust lie between them. They aren't trumpeting. They aren't waving their trunks. They aren't doing anything you would call communication. They're just standing there. And if you were beside them, you'd swear they were silent. They are not silent. Right now, inside that silence, a conversation is happening. A long one, a rich one, carried across a distance no shout could ever cross. The sound they speak in simply drops below the line your ear stops listening at. It travels through the air. It travels through the ground. It crosses kilometers. And you're standing in the middle of it, hearing absolutely nothing. For decades, that's exactly what people assumed. Elephants standing near each other meant elephants grazing near each other. Coincidence. Until one woman ended up a few meters away from them and felt a strange trembling in the air against her skin. She didn't hear it. She felt it. And this is where an uncomfortable thought creeps in, the kind you can't quite shake afterward. If an entire conversation can be happening right under your nose and you don't even suspect it, simply because you have no organ to catch it, then how many other conversations are around you right now? The forest, the field, the ocean, the yard outside your window. What if none of it is background? What if all of it is crowded with messages, addresses, warnings, names, and you walk through them like a deaf man across a busy square, certain that everything is quiet? But the real question isn't even that. It's sharper. Where exactly is the line between a complex set of signals and something we can honestly, with no discount, call language? And is there any real reason to think that on the other side of that line, there's anyone but us? The woman who felt that trembling was named Katie Payne, a bioacoustician, a researcher from Cornell University. She came to elephants by a roundabout path, because for years before that, she had been recording the songs of humpback whales. And then, in the early 80s, she found herself at the Oregon Zoo, beside an enclosure of Asian elephants. And she felt a pulsing in the air. Something was rhythmically pressing on it, pushing it, but without sound. That feeling was familiar to her. By her own account, she remembered it from childhood, from the largest pipes of a church organ, where the air begins to vibrate so low that you no longer hear it, you feel it with your body, with your chest. And standing by the elephants, she caught exactly that. In 1984, Payne and her colleagues proved it. Elephants make sounds below 20 hertz, beneath the threshold of human hearing. Infrasound. Remember that word. It's the important one today. And here's the contrast that turns everything over. An ordinary call in the savannah dies out after a few hundred meters. But an elephant's infrasonic rumble carries almost 10 kilometers. Through the air, and literally through the earth, resonating in the soil. Which means that for all the time humans lived side by side with elephants, thousands of years, the elephants were talking over our heads, loudly, in a language we physically could not hear. And here an honest person has to stop and say, wait, because there's a skeptic, and the skeptic has a point. The bare fact that an animal makes sound across a distance proves nothing on its own. A cricket makes sound across a distance too. So does a doorbell. A signal is not yet speech. A falling stone also announces itself with a crash, but nobody thinks the stone is saying anything. The skeptic puts it bluntly. How is elephant communication any different from a simple reflex? Scared, it squeaks. Hungry, it grumbles. That's not a conversation. That's a thermometer. A reaction tied to a state. And until we can show that these sounds carry content, that they are about something specific and not just, I feel bad or I feel good, the word language has no right to appear here. Fair. Completely fair. And that's exactly why it gets genuinely interesting from here. Because there's an animal that breaks this argument. Let's start where we began, the elephants. Years of observation that followed showed these low-frequency calls aren't random noise. With them, a herd coordinates its movement across enormous distances. Females, kilometers apart, change direction at the same moment, as if they'd compared notes. Elephants recognize specific individuals by these calls, their own and strangers, and respond differently depending on who is calling and how closely related they are. That's no longer, I'm scared. That's addressed contact. The sound has a sender, it has a receiver, and the receiver understands who it came from. First step. Now let's go underwater, where it gets even stranger. Sperm whales don't sing the way humpbacks do. They click. Sharp bursts of clicks, 3 or 4 at a time, sometimes up to 40 in a row. And scientists call such a burst a coda. For a long time, it seemed the clicks differed only in number and rhythm. And then Project CETI took it on. An international team where biologists work alongside engineers and machine learning specialists, launched in 2020. They fed the algorithms thousands of codas recorded from a clan of nearly 400 sperm whales in the Caribbean. And in May of 2024, their work came out in the journal Nature Communications. The result is sobering. It turned out sperm whales don't just click differently. They change the structure of a coda depending on which conversation they're in. They smoothly stretch and compress the rhythm. They add an extra click at the end, like an ornament. Out of these elements, about 156 distinguishable codas take shape. And, here's the key, they combine. Like sounds you can assemble into syllables. And at the end of 2025, the same team found something in those clicks suspiciously close to vowels. Stable patterns that repeat across different individuals, like a shared phonetics. And here the scientists are extremely careful, and they say it honestly. We still don't know what these codas mean. Maybe nothing. Maybe a great deal. But the structure itself, combinatorial, context-sensitive, flexible, is no longer an alarm clock going off. Second step, and it stands higher than the first. And now the very animal that breaks the skeptic. Small, on the ground, almost right under your feet. The prairie dog. A rodent of the American plains, about the size of a large ground squirrel. The biologist Kon Slobodchikov at Northern Arizona University listened to their alarm calls for more than 30 years. And he found something that's hard to believe at first. Prairie dogs have different calls for different predators. One for a hawk, another for a coyote, a third for a human. That alone is a lot, but then comes a detail that makes your ears ring. Encoded in their call is not just the type of threat, Its appearance is baked in: size, shape, speed, and even color. Slobodchikov tested this directly. The same colony was walked through, one at a time, by people in shirts of different colors: blue, yellow, green. Same height, same build, only the shirt changed. And the calls for the blue shirt differed statistically from the calls for the yellow one. In an alarm call, the rodents were telling each other what color the approaching danger was. Stop for a second and let that land. It means there's something like an adjective inside this animal's squeak, a description. A human is coming, tall, in blue. Not, "I'm scared," but a specific message about a specific object the prairie dog may be seeing for the first time in its life. Third step. And on this step, the skeptic falls quiet. There it is, the content he demanded. Now let's draw the line, because we've run straight into the main question. Elephants transmit an address. Sperm whales, a structure. Prairie dogs, a description. And still the strict linguist keeps shaking his head. Why? Because human language has something none of them has fully shown yet: infinity. Out of a handful of sounds, you build words. Out of words, sentences. And you can speak a phrase no one has ever spoken before you. A purple elephant is reading a newspaper on the moon. Nonsense, but you understood it. Because language assembles the new out of the old without limit. That ability to create endlessly new things from a finite set is the line where science honestly says, beyond this, we aren't sure yet. The signaling systems of animals turned out to be far richer than we thought. But language, in the full sense of the word, is still an open debate, not a settled fact. And if someone tells you the question is closed, in either direction, he isn't speaking for science. And now the story I've been saving. In 1989, a network of hydrophones on the floor of the Pacific Ocean picked up a strange sound. The U.S. Navy had laid that network during the Cold War to listen for Soviet submarines, and the operators first decided it must be machinery, maybe an enemy vessel. The sound was low, rhythmic, repeating. When the recordings were partly declassified, they were handed to the oceanographer William Watkins of the Woods Hole Institution. He listened and understood it wasn't a submarine. It was a whale, calling, the way all whales call when they're looking for their own. There was just one detail. It was calling at 52 hertz. To understand how strange that is, blue whales call somewhere around 15 to 20 hertz, fin whales around 20. This one at 52. It's as if, in a world where everyone speaks in a deep bass, a single individual was born speaking in a thin, high voice. Its song is real, a full whale song, but on a frequency that, apparently, no one else uses. And it swims, year after year, across the entire ocean, along a route that matches no known one. And it calls. And we're the ones who hear it. Our instruments catch it every season, for more than 3 decades now. The whole world hears it. The only one who doesn't seem to is the one it's calling for. Watkins tracked that voice for more than 10 years, until his own death. He died without ever learning who it was or why. And the whale, as far as we know, is still calling. And you know what's the hardest part of this story? Not the whale's loneliness. We don't even know for certain that it's lonely. That's a word we hung on it. The hardest part is something else. We heard this whale only by accident. Because during the Cold War, the military lowered ears onto the ocean floor to catch other people's submarines. Without those hydrophones, we'd have had no idea that somewhere in the Pacific, for decades, someone was singing on a note no one answers. And this is what it was all leading to from that very first elephant. We're used to thinking we're the only species on the planet with something real to say. That between us and the animals, there's a cliff. We have speech, they have reflexes. But the finer our instruments get, the more carefully we listen, the more often it turns out there is no cliff. There's a staircase. And we aren't standing on a separate peak. We're standing on the top step of the same staircase the elephant, the sperm whale, the rodent in the prairie are climbing from below. We weren't deaf to their silence. We were deaf to their speech. Simply because we didn't have the right ear. And when we finally grew one, out of the copper of hydrophones, out of algorithms, out of a woman who trusted a trembling in the air, it turned out the planet around us was never quiet. We were just the ones hearing it that way. So the next time it seems quiet around you, hold on a second. Silence isn't the absence of a conversation. Most of the time, it's just a conversation you don't have the ear for. And somewhere in the Pacific, right now, a whale is singing at 52 hertz and waiting for an answer.